You have to understand what you love to do and then what your end goal with your fitness journey is. So that being said, what helps people the most is to get a healthy body fat percentage. 90% of health markers will improve as you just get in a healthier body fat percentage.
If you're not conscious about your investment strategy, you won't end up where you want to be, not financially or as a human. On this show, we interview highly successful investors and share how they overcame limitations to become unstoppable forces of success. If you're ready to learn what it is to be a conscious investor so you can end up where you want, keep listening.
Welcome back, Conscious Investor, and welcome to the show, Ben. I'm super excited to have you here. Let's get right to it. I want to know, what do you do and how did you get started?
Well, first off, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation. You'll have to excuse me a little bit. Got a little bit of congestion going on, fighting off the flu. But essentially what I do is online fitness coaching. I know it's always kind of a unique thing when people are like, so do you just get on videos and show people what to do? I'm like, not really. Essentially what I do is I program exercises for people to do for their, days, weeks, whatever. And then I follow them along with their nutrition, have an overlook of that. And then they check in with me, at least once a week. And then I make changes and adjustments as we go to avoid plateaus. So that's in a nutshell what I do. Of course, hand in hand with that is a lot of content creation and social media type marketing. But yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the second question in just in a moment, but I just want to say, I love what you do. And there are a lot of people in your space. I know it seems to me, from my perception, it might just be the people in my own, network, but this is serving people so powerfully. I actually had somebody, shoot me a cold DM, who is trying to find clients. And, one of the challenges that we face is I travel a lot and, we have all these things. What are some of the elements that what do you love most about what you do? First, let's start there. I'm just going to go down. I have so many curious questions.
Yeah, I honestly, it's funny. I love exercise programming, and I started off just loving to work out, got myself in good shape and just kind of fell in love with that process, and then decided oh, hey, how can I make a career out of this? And of course, there's personal training, which I did that for a while. But I realized I even for free, before online coaching was a thing, I would just write out people's exercise program. And I'm like, I kind of love exercise programming. So I love doing that. And of course, just helping people. There's so many people every week I get messages I feel so much better, especially when they start out. They're like, I didn't realize, I didn't feel as good as I do now. You know what I mean? You don't understand how good you feel once you kind of start on making these habits and these good routines. So really to just help change people's lives, whether they're doing huge weight loss bids or they're wanting to compete in bodybuilding for the first time. They prove to themselves that they're able to make such a huge sacrifice in goal. It's really cool to be a part of that.
It's so exciting. I agree with you. And being fit and healthy creates this whole new, the world shifts when you're fit and healthy. And when I see people that are unhealthy, it makes my heart go oh my gosh, the world would be so different. Your world would be completely different if you had some healthy habits involved. What would you say are the top three? Since my investing company is 3 keys, I lean on the number 3 a lot, and I love the number 3. What would you say are the top 3 keys that just anybody could utilize as a check-in? Am I really healthy? What are am I really healthy? Could I optimize this better? And maybe some common pitfalls that people face.
Oh man, that's a good question. I think that would.
I need at least 30.
Yeah. I think, first off, it would totally depend on that person and what health means to them, because everyone is so unique and has different goals. But I would say, first off, if you have energy throughout the day and you're able to perform your daily tasks, that's a pretty huge one. You feel good as far as the food you're eating and your digestion and everything. and not like lagging. A lot of it comes down to kind of how you feel, I guess, in your day to day. It's not like, if you can bench press 315 pounds, you're good. So it's more so just like, can you, bend over and put your shoes on every day? Can you squat up off the toilet? Very functional things. Like at the end of the day, as we age, that's what's most important. If you can just function and get through the day to day.
That makes a lot of sense. And I really appreciate that you said, what does health mean to you? You really have to understand that. And I've been working on that because I'm writing a conscious investor book right now. And so I've been diving into health in a different way. I would love to know what health means to you.
Oh man. That's such a broad thing, because of course there's not just physical health, there's mental, emotional health, all of those things of course tie into each other. But since I do the fitness side, we'll kind of, I guess, lean more towards that. Again, but as your fitness improves, usually the other ones do too, and vice versa. So it's kind of a cool thing. But I would say essentially, again, having energy throughout the day, being able to accomplish your daily tasks, whether you're a parent or, whatever healthcare worker, whatever your job is, you're able to do that throughout the day. And usually in a healthy body fat percentage, because typically that's a good indication you're not going to have a random heart attack at 30. Of course, obviously things happen, we can't prevent everything, or cancer happens, you never know. But essentially, if you're, relatively healthy body fat percentage, that's a pretty good indication you're pretty healthy.
Like that. I appreciate that. As I was diving into that concept of what is health, and like, it's easy to say like, oh, mind, body, soul. And I've spoken before, and I know that we could really go deep on all of this, and that's fine. We totally can. But I've really been thinking about that, how connected, our health, our physical health is to our spiritual health, to our relationships, like the health of our relationships. Like everything is just this tangled web that feeds off of each other.
Yeah, 100%. I know something like I always hear in fitness and in general is just like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And usually it's a pretty right thing. Like if you're disciplined in one aspect, usually it carries over, and you're going to be a more fit and healthy person because you have that same discipline in place.
That's so true. Part of that question was, how did you get started? You already had a love of fitness, and there's so many ways where I just want to pull this apart, but I'm going to just hear what you have to say instead of imposing what I think you're going to say. How did you get started? Saying this is my career, and I commend you also for asking that question, how can I make a career out of this? And conscious investor, that's a question you need to be asking yourself. You don't have to be stuck anywhere in anything in your life. You just have to ask that simple question, how can I? And so I love that you asked that, but how did you get started? Did you have to we'll leave it there.
Yeah, no. It's funny. I'm from a very small town, literally about 1,000 people. I had a tiny graduating class. There wasn't even a gym in my hometown. So fitness wasn't really cool.
I mean, I'm totally interrupting. I recognize that, conscious investor. I know I've worked years to break that. I graduated with 45 people.
Okay. So I had a big class for my high school, and we had, I think our graduating was like 70 something, I forget. So we were one of the bigger ones, but there were certainly classes that graduated in the 40s. So probably a similar size school, I assume.
Yeah. Not the whole, here's a graduating class of 600. Like when my sister graduated and I had to sit through her, I'm like, what?
Yeah. No, it was a 30-minute graduation ceremony. One of those guys. It was pretty short. Yeah. So
I'm sorry. I'm just totally curious. So here you are living in this small 1,000-person town. It's one stoplight or zero stoplights?
So there used to be one stoplight. Now it's a 4-way stop. So it wasn't necessary to do the stoplight anymore, I guess. So, yeah. Anyway, so very small, no gym. So I kind of just fell in love with being in shape. I played a lot of sports, but then I also grew up with my dad watching the cheesy 80s action movies, that whole era, which are
Die
the worst
Hard.
movies, but they're the best. Yeah.
Yes, they were the best.
Yeah, 100%. So I grew up, idolizing these kind of action figure looking guys, right? And my dad, of course, he was former military and, in good shape and always telling us, about doing all these push-ups and all the, dad, type stuff. So that was kind of my outlook growing up, was that was like the ideal of what a hero is, right? So then I eventually graduated high school and was done with sports, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try something else. I kind of got into mixed martial arts for a little bit and fell in love with more of the fitness side and conditioning and getting in shape for it.
But you didn't like getting knocked around and knocking up people? I don't understand.
It turns out I didn't like getting punched in the face that much. That's what it was. I was like tired of getting beat up. I was like, people can have this. I get it. I appreciate it, but it's like maybe not for me. I'll just stick to the, strength and conditioning side. That's more my speed. I'm sorry.
You're just going to have the look. I'm just going to be like,
right.
And I mean, like you're tall and you're strong. So I'm like, you got the look.
Yeah. I just got to look like I can fight someone. I don't actually need to, hopefully. Right. And plus the weights don't really hit back. So I liked that part. So I ended up just kind of falling in love with that and just lifting weights and just kind of stuck with that. And then I decided like, okay, maybe I can make personal training a career or pursuit or own a gym or something like that. So eventually I ended up getting a job at a corporate gym as a personal trainer, did that for a little while. And then when I was extremely broke, couldn't afford anything, I was like, maybe I should try something else. So I ended up joining the military. And then I did that for 4 years. And kind of my last year in the military, I was like, okay, I need to figure out what I want to do. There's a turning point where you stay in for another contract. And then at that point, it's like, you might as well just retire. But it's like, okay, so what do I want to do? I ended up kind of creating an Instagram around that same time. And then I saw there was these really fit guys doing online coaching. And I was like, what is this? So I kind of looked into it, started following these guys. And I was like, you know what? I think I can try that. So I launched, a website and I created this program. It was, dirt cheap at the time. I was like, I have no idea what the price point of these things are, how this works.
Was it when you first started out? My coaching when I first started was so I'm like, wow.
It was, so at the time I just did like one check-in per month. So someone would just get a program and then they're supposed to check in a month. 99% of the time I never heard from them again, but it was like $75 for a 12-week workout program.
That's better than Groupon. I mean, like,
right. Gosh. So I launched this thing. I remember on I think it was a Thursday, and Saturday hits, and I was like, okay, hopefully I'll have people lining up wanting to, pay me for the service. And I think I had 2 people sign up that day. And I was like, I just made $150 out of nowhere, just with the internet, no product. I was like mind blown. I was like, all right, let's see what we can do with this. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And I love the willingness to iterate and to just try. And that's like a powerful mindset that you have that serves people so powerfully. So I'm curious, what are some of the hurdles and obstacles that you have personally faced that you've overcome?
Oh man. Just, now at this point, I've been doing it for quite a long time. I think the biggest thing, especially starting out, is like the people I saw doing it were kind of these big, fitness influencers with this huge following. And here I am with a very small following trying to do the same thing. So the hardest thing was figuring out how to get more clients, how to market, how to post on social media, what to post when. And then like during the day, I'm like, okay, I feel like I should be doing something. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to try and do this and work on this thing and this. So it's just a matter of like figuring out what to do when and like how to market it essentially.
Yeah, that's always like, I mean, that's basic business, right? Is
Right.
having people come through the door and click on my site, click on my my bio, everything like that, equivalent of the door. That's wild. Totally different totally different, like just a little curve in the conversation. I want to ask you, so often I'm hearing some of my buddies, working with personal trainers, like, oh yeah, I got to get my blood work, and they're doing their blood work. Or some of them are, I got to do my hormone check. And some of them are, I got to do my minerals. I got to get my minerals tested. And it seems like there are so many different things out here. And you and I've spoken. So I'm like, I have a level of trust in you versus all these different, people over there online and everything. So I'm curious, how important are those elements? And if any of them are important, which one would you value most?
Okay. First of all, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that because there are a billion people out there who kind of do what I do or share fitness advice. But the same thing I kind of tell people is like, there's so much information. There's so many warnings to stay away from this, that you need to do this, and, all of those things. What I essentially tell people is the best workout program or nutrition plan that you can possibly do is the one that you'll follow. So first of all, you have to understand what you love to do and then what your end goal with your fitness journey is. If someone's like, I want to run a marathon, I'm not going to be like, okay, let's do all these crazy bodybuilding workouts and just, eat all this tons of food, because it's not going to be conducive to their goal. So you have to understand what it is that your goal is and where you want to go with it. So that being said, essentially, in general, what helps people the most is to get in a healthy body fat percentage. So if that means to be in a caloric deficit, a lot of times 90% of health markers will improve as you just get in a healthier body fat percentage and are just kind of healthier. A lot of times we hear you need to cut out carbs, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's like, ignore all that, all the crazy highlight stuff. When your car's broken down, you're not like, okay, let me fix these headlights and put a wing on it. No, it's like, get to the bare bones basic. Yeah, you just kind of start with the basics. And then as you start to improve it, then you can work on the extra stuff. So do the basic things, get your nutrition on point, eat whole unprocessed foods as you can with high protein. Move every day, get steps, walks in, and then resistance trainer, lift weights a few times a week. Those things right there, it's so basic, but it's like, that's going to improve most of health problems out there.
That's amazing. So is it overkill for the average person? Now, some people, and I'm just going to leave the people that really want to, because I mean, you and I both have friends that are really trying to be in like the best shape of their lives. Mm-hmm. I'm just a conscious investor. This might sting a little bit, but a lot of people in their middle years are like, no, I'm going to be in the best shape. I'm, in fact, Ed Milet, and I adore Ed Milet, but I'm like, when he turned 50, he's like, I'm in the best shape of my life. I've never been this strong, this ripped, this big. And so I really do see this as a trend. By the way, I posted something recently just on my personal, social platform of like snobby hobbies. And sometimes I think that fitness can turn into more than fitness and snobby hobbies. So I think that's where I'm going to separate the two and say like, okay, I'm not talking about the people that are in this for the snobby hobby of I can do all of this and look at me and I'm defying all the odds of the stereotypical person my age. But for the average bear, which I happen to be an average bear, I love move, resistance. And I love the feedback that, hey, average bears, you don't need to have this blood work and all of these other things done to be in a healthy state.
Sure. Well, I will say it's probably a good idea to get your blood work done, but the thing is as the average person gets healthier, those blood markers will improve drastically. So it's like they kind of put the cart before the horse and they try and start, optimizing hormones with other means, whether it's, medications or peptides or all those things. That's fine. But that's like, you have to, like I said, you have to do the basic, you have to fix the car first before you start to customize the exterior. And that's kind of what that comes down to. So it's like, that has a time and place, but yeah, it's kind of the people who are starting to get a little more in that snobby hobby, like you said, kind of that more advanced state. Then it's like, okay, that's fine to do that. I like that stuff too. I'm a nerd with this stuff. I love it. But for the general person, that's who I'm talking to. And it's like, just move the big rocks. There's a big person in the fitness industry who I always listen to, and he says people like to step over $100 bills to pick up pennies. It's like, just sleep more, eat whole food, move more, resistance training a couple times a week. You're good.
Okay. I love this. Sleep. I'm right. I literally wrote this down. Sleep more. That's something that I guard my sleep. And I tell my 15-year-old son, like my daughter, she's got habits. I'm like, dude, you need your sleep. Like, come on. So now we're going to hear the chatter and the resistance that you've heard from all of us average bears. Yeah, but I've got all of these things to do. And it's the only time that my husband and I and my wife and I and my partner and I have together is, it's finally quiet in the house or whatever it is, right? We always hear these reasonable excuses. That's what I call them. It's reasonable. I get it. But how important is it for us to be protecting our sleep?
It's hugely important. And this isn't something that I've realized how bad I need to implement it until I've kind of gotten into my 30s. And then you're like, oh, this actually makes a huge difference. And I'll say too, I'm always not the best sleeper, but I try to do these things the best I can. But I just listened to Dr. Lane Norton on a podcast, and he quoted a study that was like, I want to say it was like military. I think they were special operations. One group had 8 hours of sleep and one group had 4 hours. They each had equal amount of load, nutrition, everything. And the group getting 8 hours lost a substantial more amount of body fat than the other group, even though all the other factors were equated.
Whoa.
So sleep can literally help you lose body fat, and if you're optimizing everything else. So people don't understand how much it can help your performance. And then of course there's the brain performance you don't realize that you're missing out on when you're not sleeping your best. So in general, when you are that busy person, you have the kids, you have all these other things, it's like all those other things will improve if you prioritize the sleep. So sometimes taking those extra couple hours, and I understand sometimes we have projects that extend late. You have to get up early for a flight here and there. I get it. But in general, try your best to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep and watch how much better all the other aspects of your life improve.
Okay. I love this. And I am totally quoting you on this and plastering this everywhere. It's making my following's, so much smaller than following, but I'm just going to say, lose fat while you sleep.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And really, there's the data, the science. Dr. Lee Norton, that'd be a great conscious investor. You might want to just do a Google search, because that's have a lot of other interesting things. But I love when we can say, hey, we've already done this research. We've already have this. And it's almost like people with visualization, when people are injured and, I forgot the exact study, but, the guy was scheduled to run the Boston Marathon or whatever and got injured, laid up in the hospital, just visualized himself running it and ended up going to run it. It's like, there's so many, dynamics that are so similar to that of, just little important nuances.
100%. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So I want to ask this for the average bears. We're saying, hey, you know what? Get your sleep, move, eat well. I avoid fad diets myself. I do like macros. I did learn a lot from macros. That's the one thing that I did do because it definitely opened my eyes to nutrients and such. Other than that, I'm like, no, I just want to eat a balanced diet. I don't want to deprive myself. I get one life. and I like my cocktails. Okay. Like Super Red Steve makes really great craft cocktails. So I'm like, I'm not going to deprive myself of a cocktail. But all that to say, what would you say, aside from that, maybe 3 key elements that would really support people, maybe 3 key elements that they can do at the gym. Like you were talking about resistance training, getting that physical movement, having that resistance training. And maybe we just go into the resistance training element, because I didn't know that until I think 3 years ago. And my local gym owner was like, you need to be doing weights.
Good for him.
I don't want to bulk up, Mike. I don't want to be builder. He's like, you won't.
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Is three elements as far as just the resistance training side?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny you say that. And I think there is kind of that more old school thought process of I don't want to get too big, I don't want to get too bulky, which I always kind of think is funny as someone who's trying to get bigger. I'm like, I wish it was that easy.
Right.
Like when someone's like, I just don't want to get too big. I'm like, man, if I figured out how someone could get too big, I would have a lot more money, because that's essentially what this is. But yeah, I guess as far as it goes, I would say, so for 3 things, in a world of social media where people like to do the coolest, funnest, craziest looking things, that's fine and all, but basics work best. So your basic movements, your basic squats, deadlift variations, chest presses and shoulder presses and rows, any variation of those things, that's where 90% of your results come from. It's the very basic stuff. And it's just repeating those over years and years of hard work. That's where it all comes from, right? So basics are best. Second is there's 2 sides to this, I guess. It's finding the right amount of volume. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when someone gets excited about their fitness journey, especially I think of kind of this me as a young man, just like, I want to do it all. And so you just work out crazy hard. You do 50 sets of everything. And it's like, slow down. Like all that's going to do, the overkill is just going to make you injured, especially, as we get older. It's like, you don't need to do tons and tons of work. Your body responds just fine to the minimum effective dose. Okay. So it's kind of finding the right balance.
Conscious investor, you love this too. We don't have to be stacking the weight. Like you don't have to max out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the weights, of course, should be challenging, but you don't have to go every set till extreme failure where your eyes are popping out and your face is red. It's really because a lot of that will just lead to injury. So this is a long-term game. We're not trying to be Ronnie Coleman on stage, in the early 2000s at 300 shredded pounds. It's about longevity and just feeling and looking your best. So, finding the right amount of balance is kind of a good key. And that's a lot of what I do essentially, is just helping people do the right amount to get the most amount of results. Right.
Okay. I completely appreciate the second point on volume. My 12-year-old little miss daughter, she is lifting weights with me because she really wants to. And I think she wants to because mom's doing it, kind of like you and your, right?
I love it.
She had to wait. I said, you have to be 12. I'm not going to, you have your whole life, and we'll incorporate this slowly. But I always remind her as we're doing this together, I'm like, think about your 80-year-old self. We're not here to prove anything at all. We're here for lifetime fitness. So 80-year-old little miss, like.
Right. That's exactly it. Because especially when you're young, it's like more is more, but it's like, that's not really how it works. There's plenty of, studies showing when you do, kind of the right amount of volume, it's most optimal because you're not only going to get the most amount of results, but you're going to prevent yourself from getting injured, which will there in turn ruin the state of progress that you there would have had if you didn't injure yourself. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and then the last thing, funny enough, with resistance training, it comes to nutrition, right? everything we do, all the movements, it's powered by something, the law of thermodynamics. You can't just create energy from nothing. So you have to fuel your body properly to maximize your time in the gym. A lot of people think you can just work really hard and push a lot of weight and do a ton of cardio, and that's going to make up for, all the terrible dieting that you did over the weekend, but that's not really how it works. So it comes down to just nutrition discipline, and that will translate to a better gym resistance training session.
I appreciate that, because there are times I still am using my Fitness Pal as just as a food diary. I'm like, it's like, oh, cool, it works, it's there. But, see your how many calories you burned during your workout. And it's like, they give them to you as a bonus. Like, oh, here, you get these extra calories because you worked out. Kind of a exciting, like, oh, but no, I don't need to eat all those extra calories.
Right. I know the first thing I tell people when they have my Fitness Pals to turn that feature off, actually, because people will there in turn eat more to make up for it. But I'm like, the whole point was to create that hole in the first place if the goal is weight loss. So
totally called me out, Ben. That's totally a zing.
Because they have that same process that you did. Like, oh, I have this bonus now, but it's like, no, don't let it be that.
Well, and really, this it has a direct correlation, like you said, that popular quote of how you do one thing is how you do all things, and then that type of thinking pours into people's finances all the time. Oh, I got this bonus, or I got this, gift card, or this whatever it is, this little influx, and then some people end up spending it like 5 times over. It's like almost like the lottery effect. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That's really wild and fun. So I love that. Basics, volume, and nutrition. Like, just keep it simple. This is one thing I appreciate about you and just the platform that you've built is like, it's just simple. Just, you don't have to do all these gimmicky things.
Yep. Appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's super rad. So where can people find you?
So on pretty much all social media platforms, Lawless Fitness, that's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I also have a Facebook group for people to get a little bit more bonus content. I do some lives and things in there. It's just Fitness Plateau Secrets. So anyone can join, and I can accept you. And I love to have, more people in there to, share even more information and content in there. So, yeah.
I appreciate that. Now, Conscious Investor, I'm going to give you lots of cool information that has not been shared here yet. And that is that, first of all, huge shout out to our mutual friend, Dallin, for the introduction. So this is the power of your network, and having strong, incredible, wonderful people in your network makes all the difference. So shout out to Dallin. Go check out the Millionaire Mindset podcast. And there's an episode there that features Ben. And you want to listen to that episode because you're going to get another, like a whole other dimension. And this is why it's so good to podstock people, right? So, you want to listen to different interviews because you're going to get different facets. And this is one reason I didn't ask some of the same questions, because guess what? Ben, Dallin, myself, we're all going to be at the Conscious Investor Growth Summit. And so I want you to be familiar with all of us. And I want you to be coming to the Conscious Investor Growth Summit and experiencing we're collapsing the distance between you and the stage. We're all there to serve, support, empower, pour into you for this weekend. So you want to click the link in the show notes so that you're checking out and getting your tickets before the early bird special runs out, 50% off. That's a screaming deal. You want to make sure that you're going there. So go check out Dallin's podcast, Millionaire Mindset, the episode with Ben. We'll try to get a link in the show notes for you to make that really simple. And then go grab your tickets for the Conscious Investor Growth Summit, March 7th through 10th, so that you don't miss out on that. Dallin, I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and I appreciate, I appreciate people that are grounded, and, you make this so accessible and so simple for busy conscious investors who are trying to live a healthy life, But we get distracted by some of the, I guess we need to do this and this. And it's like, no. So thank you for simplifying our lives.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Until next time, conscious investor, cheers to health, mindset, and wealth.